If you're thinking about moving to Florida, you probably have some important questions. What are the best areas to live? How much does housing cost? What are the schools like? And apparently, am I going to be eaten by an alligator? I've lived in Florida for almost 4 decades, and I can confirm something for you that we do, in fact, have alligators. We also have snakes, lizards, mosquitoes, sharks, palmetto bugs, hurricanes, lightning, and sinkholes. Apparently, the internet has decided that simply walking outside your Florida home is some kind of survival exercise. So today, we're going to separate what's actually worth worrying about from what's just Florida nonsense. Let's start with the big one. Alligators. Yes, we have alligators. And if you live near fresh water, you should assume an alligator is there, or at least possibly there. A pond? Alligators. Lake? Alligators. Canal? Alligators. Retention pond behind your neighborhood? Could have one in it. Your swimming pool? Okay, if there's an alligator in your swimming pool, you've earned the right to be a little concerned. But here's the reality. Millions of Floridians go about their everyday lives without being chased around their neighborhoods by alligators. You respect them, you don't feed them, and you don't approach them. I also think it's a particularly important thing that you don't let your pets wander around the edges of lakes or ponds unattended. That's really just part of understanding where you live. So alligators, actual concern or Florida nonsense? I'm going with actual concern, but not a reason to panic. Respect them, give them space, and don't try to make friends with them. They don't need your friendship. Let's talk about lizards. If you're afraid of lizards, I have some unfortunate news for you. You're probably going to meet one before you've completely unpacked the moving truck. But here in Central Florida, these little guys are just part of the scenery. They're on the sidewalk, they're on the fence, they're on the patio, and occasionally one finds its way inside the house. And suddenly a perfectly rational adult who just negotiated a $500,000 real estate transaction is standing on a chair screaming, "Get it out!" And meanwhile, the lizard, who weighs approximately 1/3 of an ounce, is more afraid of you than you are of it. Actually, based on some of the reactions I've seen, I'm not completely sure that's true. They're generally harmless, and they eat bugs, so I consider them part of the Florida Pest Control Department. So lizards, actual concern or Florida nonsense? Let's be real. Florida lizards are not a huge cause for concern. You're going to be fine. Palmetto bugs. That sounds nice, doesn't it? The palmetto bug. Almost tropical. You might imagine it sitting under a palm tree, drinking something with a little umbrella in it. No, it's a cockroach, a really big cockroach, and some of them fly. We just gave them a beautiful Florida name so that you'd still move here. If you're moving from somewhere where you've never seen one, the first encounter can be memorable. And here's the worst part. You see it. It sees you. You both stop. There's a moment of mutual recognition, and then it flies. But seeing one doesn't mean that your house is filthy. This is Florida. They're outside. And occasionally they find their way inside, which is why pest control is simply a part of life for a lot of Florida homeowners. So palmetto bugs are an actual annoyance, but they're not an actual danger. Snakes. Yes, Florida has snakes. But if you're picturing yourself opening the front door every morning and having to battle your way to the car, that's just not what life is like here. You may see snakes, especially if you live near conservation areas, woods, lakes, undeveloped land, or any general subdivision. But most of the time, the snake wants absolutely nothing to do with you. Florida has both venomous and non-venomous species, so the important thing is to simply give them space and not reach into places where you can't see where you're reaching into. That's why I also don't recommend identifying a snake using the highly scientific method of, I'm going to get really close and take a picture. You don't need a close-up. Your phone has a zoom on it. Use it. The verdict? Snakes are an actual concern. But again, respect them. Leave them alone. And for most people, Snakes are just part of living in and around Florida wildlife. Mosquitoes. Now here's something that probably affects your everyday life a lot more than an alligator does. We have them, and if you go outside around dusk after a summer rain, they may be very excited that you've arrived. The good news is that you aren't necessarily spending 12 months a year being carried away by mosquitoes. We have mosquito control programs. Many homes have screened patios and pool enclosures, and you can use repellent when appropriate. It's also smart not to leave standing water around your property. There's no clever marketing name for them. They're mosquitoes. Nobody calls them Florida hummingbirds. They're mosquitoes. They're annoying, and they're real, but a manageable concern. Sharks. Bum, 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 bum. Yes, Florida has sharks. And this conversation gets particularly interesting when we talk about one of the coastal markets where we sell real estate, New Smyrna Beach. New Smyrna Beach is commonly called the shark bite capital of the world. So if you're moving there, should you immediately cancel the moving truck? Well, no. Here's the part that doesn't make nearly as exciting a headline. New Smyrna has a tremendous number of surfers and swimmers in the water all the time. So you've got sharks, people, surfboards, and often murky water all accompanying the same space. Every once in a while, somebody gets mistaken for lunch, usually very briefly. And yet, people, including me, still love New Smyrna Beach. People surf, swim, boat, fish, buy homes, raise families, and enjoy the beach every single day. You pay attention to local conditions, follow the lifeguards and the beach warnings, and understand that when you get into the Atlantic Ocean, anywhere in the Atlantic Ocean, you're entering somebody else's neighborhood, sharks. So sharks, actual wildlife, and a real risk, but not something that keeps most of us out of the water. And if you're really concerned, maybe don't dress like a tiger shark's favorite appetizer. I'm kidding, mostly. Lightning. Now here's one that sounds like another exaggerated Florida claim, except this one's basically true. You may have heard somebody call Central Florida the lightning capital of the world. We're not. But Central Florida is known for frequent lightning, and the corridor between Tampa and the Space Coast is known as Lightning Alley. And the National Weather Service has called Florida the lightning capital of the United States. But this is one I genuinely want you to take seriously. If you hear thunder, get inside. Get out of the pool. Get off the lake or the golf course. And if you're at the beach, get off the beach. It's a serious thing. Lightning is definitely an actual concern. In fact, I'd worry a whole lot more about lightning during a Florida summer afternoon than I would getting chased by an alligator. Hurricanes. This is one where I'm going to be a little more serious. Hurricanes are absolutely part of living in Florida. If you're buying a home on or near the Atlantic coast, your hurricane conversation may be very different from somebody buying a home in Orlando, Winter Park, or Lake Mary. And if you're buying a home directly on the water of the Atlantic coast, it's a different conversation again. Wind exposure matters, flood risk matters, storm surge matters, evacuation zones matter, insurance matters. The construction of the house matters. Now move inland to Central Florida. Does that mean hurricanes can't cause significant damage? Absolutely not. We can still experience strong winds, heavy rain, flooding, tornadoes, power outages, trees coming down, roofs getting ripped. But the risks aren't identical to owning a house directly on the coast. Whether you live on the beach or 50 miles inland, one piece of advice doesn't change. Prepare before the storm is coming. Because the first time a hurricane approaches after you move here, you'll probably go to Publix and discover that apparently every person in Florida has simultaneously decided they need bottled water. You'll look for batteries, gone. You'll decide you need plywood, so did everybody else. And for reasons I still don't completely understand, there will be no bread. That's when you learn one of the most important lessons about living in Florida. Hurricane preparation starts before the storm. Hurricanes are absolutely a real concern, but preparation beats panic. The sun. You're probably thinking, seriously? Some people come here in January, it's 74 degrees with a beautiful breeze, and they're outside all afternoon thinking, this is paradise. 4 hours later, they're the color of a stop sign or a tomato. Florida sun is no joke. So drink water, use sunscreen, I repeat, use sunscreen, find some shade, and wear a hat, especially when you're on the water. And if you just moved here from somewhere that's been cloudy for the last 5 months, maybe don't try to become a Florida native in one afternoon. You got time. Now here's what I want you to really take away from this video. Florida is different, and that's part of why we love it. We have alligators, lizards, some super interesting bugs, afternoon thunderstorms that can look like the end of the world, hurricanes that sometimes are, incredible sunshine, lakes everywhere, natural springs, and 2 incredible coastlines. A lot of things that seem strange when you first move here eventually become completely normal. And I think that's the real difference between visiting Florida and living in Florida. So let's answer the question that we started with. Will you get eaten by an alligator if you move to Florida? Probably not. Will you eventually see one? Very likely. And that is the real Florida. I've spent almost 3.5 decades helping people buy and sell real estate throughout Central Florida. My team and I would much rather help you understand the good and the bad before you move here than have you discover it after you've already bought the house. So if you're thinking about moving to Central Florida, whether you're 3 months out or a year away, give us a call. My team and I would love to help. We'll see you in the next video.